Okay, on to game 2 of the 45-10 preparation games for the open section tournament in about 4 weeks time. So as usual, we're wanting to just keep familiar with the moves that we make, and if there's anything unusual, let's just not lose our heads. Let's not over respect the opponent's position or their playing skills. Just deal with what is actually happening on the board. So this looks fairly familiar. Just attacking the center pawn. They do capture back, pretty straightforward. And we capture with the knight. So in familiar territory, nothing out of the ordinary at the moment. What's crucial is the opening part. It's the opening that really sets the tale for the rest of the game. Queen's out early, attacking the pawn. Okay, I think fairly comfortable with that, so we'll just take the knight off the board, and obviously the queen is going to capture, but something's telling me the move order was slightly wrong there. Okay, so yeah, captured, looking for the queen to go opposite their queen. But it looks like we are going to be down a pawn because of that. That's something to be mindful of going forward. It's just take a little bit more time and read that situation. But just because you're down a pawn doesn't mean you've lost the game, and I'm always adamant of that. It depends how the opponent plays, because they've got double pawns. So in essence, the extra pawn they've got is in a doubled state. So we're castling. King safety. So there's pluses and minuses from that particular exchange in the opening. I have seen that type of stuff before. I have seen the queen come out early a while back. It's, you know, it's not a often thing. But I have to remember that we will be down a pawn if we do that, so there are better moves that can be done. But it is a double pawn, which is a weakness which we've been covering over the past few series of videos. So out now, just attacking the knight, again looking to see if we can double more pawns to create more weaknesses, as we've mentioned in the recent videos. More weaknesses we can develop is going to be better for us flying through into the end of the end game. So the queens are off now, so we're looking at, this is like the beginning of the end game if you want to look at it in phases. So how can we be as destructible as possible, or disruptive as possible? They do actually attack, so we gladly freely take the pawn and get more double pawns. So in essence, with them having the extra pawn, I'm trying to get some sort of compensation in terms of bad position on the board for the opponent, which seems to be working okay. I'm fairly happy that we've done that. Now we just need to get our pieces developed and get nice position, maybe trying to own the file with the rooks. Nice and simple basic chess. So blocking the long castling if they were looking to do that. Also, as we mentioned, looking to own the file with the rooks. Open files with the rooks. It's so basic, but if it's missed, you do miss a lot of advantages in the game. So they're looking to block off the ownership of the file with the bishops. I would say that's not really what they're designed for anyway, but we will go and see if we can attack this free pawn, which is at the side of the E bishop. We're attacking the bishop as well, and if we did get the bishop, we'd be able to get the pawn as well, because the rook would be able to take. But we are thinking also the king's just going to go up and support the pawn. But it's giving them things to think about. It's active. It's not being defensive. We're trying to make something happen. Key thing to practice as well is that art of patience, not rushing the moves. I mean, a little bit earlier in this, I think we kind of rushed the moves, so we ended up being down the pawn. But one of the key things that I always say to myself is it's how you come back from those blunders or errors, because you're going to make errors and blunders. So they've actually gone and long castled, but that pawn has got no protection on it, so our knight could freely take the pawn. If you're looking at it in terms of equalizing, then we have done, but I'm looking more at trying to improve my position on the board. So it's a good benefit that it feels like it was a safe capture of the pawn, and we could always go back again and then attack the bishop again. The worst thing is when you take it back home and you look at the evaluation and you've done all the patience in the world and you've selected a move like us capturing this knight, the pawn, and then you look and you go, well, the gauge bar is showing that wasn't advantageous, you know, and you think, what? That's a beautiful position. The opponent has to be able to take advantage of that beautiful position. It wasn't anything major, and now we're looking to just basically trade down as best possible, because they have got a double pawn situation, and we're now aiming towards the end of the end game, if you like. We do have a check on the king, so the bishop can't take the knight straight away. The bishop captures. Gives us time to move our knight. And again, back to probably looking at owning the open files with potential for improving positions. Is our king okay? Might be too safe now. Looking at trying to get all these angles sorted out in terms of getting the king active. But they've actually come out and attacked the knight. It's got no protection on it. They lose a bit of tempo. Then you look and say, oh, that bishop is x-raying through to the b pawn in front of the king. So you instantly say, well, the rook is going to be coming to b8, isn't it? Looking to actually go for a check on the king. So that will be their focal point. Am I covered? I'm thinking I'm potentially covered. I feel fairly okay. Do we need to give our king a bit of safety? Do we just develop the rook? supporting the knight, trying to own the file, and they come through with the b pawn, the rook attacking the b pawn. So now we've solidified their attack process. That's the only thing they're going to be focused on, which will allow us then to be able to come in and stealthily maneuver our pieces, because that's all they'll be focused on. That's what I'm thinking in my head. Currently we can't move the knight, so can we just support the knight with the pawn and stop the bishop from having the attack on the pawn? We have to be mindful that if the knight does move and our rook moves, the bishop would be able to take the pawn, because the pawn won't be able to take back because the king is opposite the rook. All these little small details factored in within that one move. And as we mentioned, that will be their whole focal point of attacking that particular area. In my head anyway, that's what I'm thinking. They'll be looking to get their dark square bishop out, I'm thinking, so that it can hit the king on the dark square. And that's when you start over calculating, overthinking. So they're hitting the knight because they want to get rid of it. Because as we mentioned, if the knight does move, then obviously the bishop can take the pawn, unless of course the knight jumps in front of the king area. Or it attacks the bishop and the rook. But if it did that, the bishop would take it off the board. So the safest place for the knight to move, if it has to move at all, or do we just attack their bishop? Lots of continuations, or do we bring the rook supporting the knight? So we do move the knight, and it's attacking the bishop. Now the bishop can take the pawn, but obviously the rook can take the bishop. So it would have been worse if we'd moved the rook as well. But for now they have to do something with their bishop. They move it out of the way of that initial attack. As we mentioned, that's their whole focal point. They're going to try and fight. Well, I'm thinking they're going to keep on trying to find ways of working with that attack. Bishop's got no protection on at the moment, so we can now release the rook, attacking the bishop, giving them something to think about. So the bishop moves further away. Now we're owning the open file, although it does have the two bishops defending that area next to the king. So now bringing the knight back around to basically bring it up and start formulating an attack towards the rook and the king, rook and the bishops. Also releasing the pawns so that they can protect themselves. But this pawn on the F doesn't have, well, it has one piece supporting it, which is the bishop. If our knight came there to B3, it would be able to put a fork, a double attack on that pawn. The bishop's in, attacking the rook. So we can simply defend as far as I can see by just pushing a smaller piece onto the higher piece. So they're attempting the answer to chess process, you know, of putting the pressure on the king or the king area. But currently I'm happy that the team isn't working together. It's like single attacks that are coming in, which is good for us. The rook moves, and for a moment I'm thinking, well, the bishop's still under attack from the small pawn. Am I missing something here? It looks like we can take this bishop off the board. Obviously the rook's probably going to come back, and I was thinking, is it a set play thing because it comes back and puts a check on the king and then the bishop's got something, but I just couldn't see that. So they've moved the pawn down, looking for the bishop to probably go into the corner, and then the rook then puts the check on the king type thing. So it's a bit of a fancy maneuver, but I can see what they were attempting to do. I'll just move the king off of the line of that attack and not onto a white square, because the bishop is probably looking to still go onto the h3 and get the rook onto g2, putting checks on the king type thing. So that's like a, looks like a mating neck type thing almost. And they do go for it. Of course, we've seen that, and we can take the pawn now and now attack the bishop, and we're attacking the rook. We're attacking two pieces from that particular maneuver. And then the opponent resigned.